know what makes you think that, but yeah, I've
Well, you're
had
brave
worse
enough to
mornings.
wear a Spurs top.
You see, these days, Robin, you don't need to be brave to wear a Spurs top. We're having such a magnificent season in Europe, that's feels a pleasure to wear.
Absolutely, and obviously that's Bilbao, where you will be for the final.
With a bit of luck, we've still got to get past the mighty Bodo Glimt. I think I'm saying that right.
Yes, yes, from the
Yeah,
from
still
the
got to get past them.
Antarctic.
Yeah,
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 but I
yeah.
mean, it's a good if you're going to play away against a team that lives in the Antarctic, it's probably best to do it in May.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Yeah,
Not,
I
if this was November, I would be fearing for your players, just kind of freezing.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have a lot of confidence going into last night. I'll be honest, but we played so well that now I'm full of confidence for the semi-final, which means we will inevitably fall flat on our face against the champions of Norway. But I'm going to try and be positive, and I'm going to cheer us on all the way.
Absolutely. Well, I watched, I think, the second half of the game, and I thought you, over both legs, I thought you were by far the better team. And but it was interesting. They were interviewing Spurs fans beforehand on the news, and they were like, "Well, we don't care, win or lose, he's got to go, right?" But I think last night saved two managers for a bit longer. I think old Postecoglou has got a bit of a reprieve, and the one who's got the biggest reprieve, because after your game finished, I don't know if you did, but I switched over to watch the extra time in the Man
Yeah,
U game. I didn't bother watching it because when they were 2-0 up, you thought, that's easy. And then when I saw it was 2-2, I thought, oh, this is gonna be a cracker.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
then
caught so
Leon
I
4-2
turned
up.
over. I turned over for extra time, and I saw Leon go 4-2 up, and I thought, that's enough. I'm going to bed. This is over. I can't wait to laugh at all the Man United fans tomorrow. And then and when I was in bed, I was looking at these updates, thinking, "What the hell am I missing? Seems like the game of the century." And somehow their, trusty striker Harry Maguire pops up with the winner in the
Well, yeah, I
121st
mean,
minute. Incredible.
the second half of the extra time, because extra time often you go, oh God, we just got half an
Yeah,
hour and then penalties. But this was a game that had like four goals in it, and the second half, I mean, Man United just scored three goals, and Robbie Savage is commentating, and he's going, they've got to get it onto Maguire's head. Get it on his head. He'll score the winner. And then literally he scored the winner. Right, I told you. You know.
I never realised Robbie Savage had such amazing football insight. I've listened to him
I
on
know.
606, and there was no evidence of that. But maybe he's
He
onto
has
something.
he has had he does manage his team, and he has got them Macclesfield. He got them promoted like 20 points clear of anybody else.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
So
sure
we have to
impressive. But
give him
he turned
some
out to be
credit.
right. He turned out to be right. And Maguire, what a career he's had at Man United. He's been, done well to early doors, but then just ridiculed for a good length of his time at United. But he popped up with probably his most important goal ever, biggest contribution ever for United, I imagine, to get them into that semi-final. But
Amazing.
they've got probably a challenging game as well against Athletic, who
Bilbao,
are
yeah. Yeah.
they are going to be tough.
They're
Obviously,
probably the what? They're probably the favourites of all the
I would
teams left.
I would think so, and I would certainly think. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't looked this morning, but I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs maybe are the favourites just because of the semi-final route. But in the final, with the final in their home stadium, if they get through, that is going to be some atmosphere and some challenge for either Spurs
Mind
or
you,
Bodo Glimt.
Chelsea did it to Bayern Munich, so you guys can do it.
They did, but I remember that game, and that was a nervy watch if you're a Spurs fan, a Chelsea fan. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
that was they rode their luck for a large portion of that game. But
All the way through that tournament, they rode their luck.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
didn't look good in any games. And of
they
course,
didn't.
I'm still basking in the glory of Wednesday night
I was wondering when we might get to that
of Inter beating Bayern.
and knocking out my beloved Harry Kane. Couldn't
Yeah,
believe it.
yeah, because I don't want to play Harry Kane or Dyer.
Even Eric
So
Dyer scares
yeah,
you.
because they did us last season in the quarterfinals. So I
Yeah,
can't, the fact they've gone, that is a blessing.
yeah.
Um, But
Yeah, Inter look
the
good
funny,
though. Inter look good. I mean, give them a lot of credit.
yeah. Oh
They
no,
are a
well,
decent side.
Inter are my favourites because they don't normally concede. However, in that quarterfinals, they conceded 3 goals overall, so they're not infallible.
Yeah,
I mean, Arsenal only conceded 1 goal, but that was basically a gift. We
it
decided
really
to
was.
give them a gift. It's like, what are you doing? You
So
know,
what do you make of Real Madrid over the two legs? Because I mean, they've been incredible over the last 10, 15 years of the Champions League, but they looked really off it and really out of sorts. Do you put that all down to Arsenal, or do you put that down
no,
to some problems they've got?
well, no, it's partly of their own making because none of their forwards track back at all, which
Yeah.
in the modern game, you've got to be as good going forward as you are at the back. Their fullbacks don't overlap, so they don't put us under pressure. And every time, we lost the ball, Saka and Martinelli are back defending as playing
Mm.
like fullbacks.
Yeah.
And you're just watching them. And again, and Bellingham, who is a great player, clearly, but we obviously got under his skin because all he did
Yeah.
was niggle and moan throughout both games. He
Yeah.
did absolutely nothing of that you would say, "Oh wow, what an outstanding player!" And
Mhm.
their new stadium's now been renamed the Rice Bowl, which I'm sure a lot of Spanish fans will enjoy. And
I'm sure they will.
in
I'm
their
sure they
coming
will.
to the
He
Rice.
looked rivalries aside, he looked really good across both legs. I mean, obviously the first leg, the goals and the contribution there, and that was an amazing home win. But even in the second leg, I was really impressed with Arsenal. I didn't really fancy your chances going into the tie overall.
No,
Um,
no,
but
well, we
very
weren't
impressive.
favourite. The bookies
No.
had us down 3-1 on losing the home game, let alone the
Yeah.
away game. So we were not favourites going into it. What was amusing during the build-up to the away game was the fact that Real Madrid had convinced themselves and all their fans that they were just going to come back.
Mm.
And then, as the game progressed, you thought, this lot, honestly, unless we give them a goal, which we did, they've got no chance of coming back. And
Yeah.
had Saka have taken a proper penalty and not tried some fancy Palenka thing, if we'd gone 1-0 up at that point, I think that would have been game over.
Yeah, it was a strange choice on the penalty. And he's normally rifling it into the corner, right? So it was a strange, I don't know, maybe some mind
And
games,
if it
maybe
had come
hoping.
off, it would have been how arrogant and it would have been amazing.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, I think the problem is that when Courtois, who's obviously grown since he's gone to Real Madrid, stands in front of the goal like that, you're
He's
like,
quite a
where'd you
size,
put
isn't he?
where'd you put the
Yeah,
ball?
yeah, yeah. But I think like it was. I think they even said in commentary that if Saka had missed that and then Arsenal had capitulated, he could have ended up being like the scapegoat for the whole thing. So obviously and which would have been unfair given he was amazing in the first leg and obviously just made a bad
Yeah,
choice for the penalty. But he's proved himself to be hugely important to you and your chances. So I guess you'd be wrapping him up in cotton wool now till the semi-final, or do you think
yes,
he's going to
yes.
be very
Yeah,
active?
he's not. Let's put it this way: I'm not putting him in my fantasy team because if I was Arteta, I would not be playing him.
No, no, just put him in a
I'd
spa
be
for the
like,
next couple of weeks.
I'm sorry, but yeah, I know. Yes, you're good enough, but I think I'll leave you out this weekend.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
I
only
think that's.
Ipswich. We don't need you. The tractor boys. Although we probably do. We should probably talk as this is meant to be fantasy. We should get onto it. But one of the
Yep.
things I was looking at this morning was I was looking at your pathetic position in the league, Gary.
Excuse me. What were we talking about? We're
54th in the
oh, we're
fantasy.
talking. Well, it's actually exactly proportionate to where Spurs are in the Premier League. So,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
our fates are intertwined. And if Spurs have a half decent season, I have a half decent season. But clearly, that's not been the case this year.
Well, I saw, but you do have. So when are you going to? Talking of chips, because you've still got your second wild card, I think.
Yep.
You've got your
That
free hit, and you've got your bench. Your bench
so
boost. You got an
wild card.
interesting choice for your assistant manager.
Yeah.
Pep.
Yeah. Yeah. So few
What
reasons on that.
you
So
got you 26 points.
Yeah, he did okay. To be honest with you, it was. I think at one point I was going to go with Eddie Howe, but I ran into the. I didn't realise it, to be honest. But I already had three Newcastle players, and I couldn't have Eddie Howe as it would count as a fourth player or fourth person from Newcastle, so I couldn't do that. And I looked at changing a couple of times, but in the end, I think I just went with fairly, hopefully fairly kind of reliable points rather than anything that was going to be teams punching above their weight and beating
Yeah,
teams
yeah.
above them in the league. So um, I think, if I'm honest with you, this has been such a bad season for me in the fantasy Premier League that I didn't give it as much thought as I might have if I was in the running for anything. And it's hard to maintain the same levels of enthusiasm when you are down in 55th or whatever I'm in the league.
I
So
know.
um, I've still got, as you say, I've still got a couple of chips to play. I'm actually considering the wild card this weekend. So I'll be
Double
looking at a bit of
game week.
yeah, big double
Big
game,
week.
which for a few teams. And teams that maybe are worth kind of building a few players around for the rest of the season. So
Villa, City, Arsenal, Palace.
yeah, yeah. So we'll see. I've got the choice between either the free hit or the wild card. So I'm in an iron,
You
50
probably
50
want
maybe
your
between both.
you probably want your free hit for next week, game week 34, because it's a blank game week.
For
So
quite a few.
you might struggle to put out a full team if you, if you. I'm going to play my free hit next week.
Yeah, and that's probably what I'm thinking. If you do a wild card, as long as obviously the wild card is the squad you want to have the running with, right? So
Yeah,
I'm thinking probably more likely do that this week, and then the free hit for the unusual week next week. So you haven't got to worry about consistency between this week and next, and hopefully the squad I
and
can
then you've
select for
got
this can be
yeah,
useful for kind of the third week on. And the running, but with a bit of a tailwind, maybe I can get up to halfway or something like that, or into the top. I don't know. It's it's a brutal league, and we've talked about it before. But once you start to kind of fall behind, then you start making crazy choices, start making things that are like trying to go for these differentials that might get you
yeah.
back in it. And this has been one of those years where I feel like every single differential has just been a disaster. And you get further and further back, and then you get to like April, and you're like, oh, never mind. So
Well, I'm about to find out if my clever strategy of having Eddie Howe for what's been 3 games, 2 last week, 1 the week before,
yeah,
and now switching this week to Arteta because Arsenal have got Ipswich away and Palace at home.
hmm
If they take either of those games seriously, they should win both. So
yeah,
that could get me a bunch of. So I will have had 5 games for the manager playing these double game weeks, and so
yeah,
that's that. I think I'm already on. I've already probably made the points I would have made under on like 3 consecutive weeks. So I
yeah,
think the
yeah,
rest now is bonus points. Got my
yeah. It's
free
all
hit
bonus
next
territory.
week, and then I've got a bench boost, which I don't know when I'll play that.
Yeah,
Depends what I
you've
need at the end of the season.
You've probably played it quite well there, just trying to get the most out of those manager, the most games out of your assistant manager.
Yeah,
It's a strange one, isn't it? It's an interesting introduction this year. I don't know if I love it, if I'm really honest. I think maybe I just need to get used to it. But I think every year they kind of tinker with the format and introduce something new. Obviously, the
yeah.
second wild
I
card and so on.
quite like it because when it kicked in like game week 24, you thought, well, really is going to put the cat among the pigeons.
Mm.
Because if someone plays this well and doesn't panic and go, oh, I must play it on game week 24 because
Yeah,
of the fact once you play it, then it runs for 3 weeks. It could actually be a game changer. And I think probably for me
yeah,
and a few other people I've spotted, it'd be a game changer. I noticed last week almost everyone who had their triple captain left played it on Isaac. So they got
yeah, yeah.
33 points, but
Not
disappointing, I
as
think,
not as much
because
as you'd hope. Yeah, I mean,
one
like a
one
5
goal,
nil
one
home win.
assist, especially as
Yeah,
they scored 8 goals or something.
yeah, yeah. Who was
So,
it? Who was the guy from midfield that scored all the goals over 2 games?
Murphy,
Was it Murphy? Right? Yeah, he's
yeah.
he's the guy. If you had him, did you have him in your team?
I had to take him out to fit Eddie Howe in. I should have
Oh
taken
dear.
out Dan. I should have taken out Dan Burn, but I thought defender. There's 6 points coming.
Yeah,
Murphy, not sure whether he plays all the time or not. And then, of course,
yeah,
he has
yeah,
this this amazing purple patch. I was
Yeah.
trying to build the team to get Gordon back in once his suspension had finished, but
Yeah.
I've not been able to do that, and I've stayed away from it. So I'm
And Newcastle, I mean, they've had a great run now in the Premier League. I wasn't sure what they were going to be like after that League Cup
no,
victory, but
no,
they're really pushing up there, aren't they? And consolidating their position in the certainly in the Champions League spots. But for now, I know it's
well,
tight, right?
they're now up to third.
Yeah.
And they've got the momentum, and you never know with Arsenal whether if our mind is on Paris, then they're 4 points behind Arsenal. Forest are 5 points behind. City are 8 points behind. That makes up the top five. And then you got Chelsea, Villa just outside by 1 point. So it's
I'd be surprised if
decided,
Arsenal.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. You're right. Mathematically,
We
not.
won't
But
drop out of the top five. The question is
no.
do we sacrifice third or fourth, just to make sure that
Does it matter? Does it really matter at
well, it
this
doesn't
stage?
matter. That's the point.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can't win it. So second or third or fourth is irrelevant.
And looking at the league table now, like you say, down to Villa, 54 points in seventh place. They're only 1 point off of Man City in fifth. Top five are going to get Champions League. It's going to be. It looks like it's between like Newcastle, Forest, City, Chelsea, Villa for 3 places, right? Who do you think's getting the top 3 out of those 5?
Well, if you look at this week coming, Villa at home to Newcastle, that is a very, very big game. And that could decide. Villa, like anybody I think who's played in Europe this week, is probably pretty knackered. And then Villa have got Man City away. So you've got 2 teams in Newcastle and Man City who are in pole position at the moment. They could either mess with Villa or Villa could completely mess with them. Chelsea are away to Fulham. That's not an easy game because Chelsea are not playing well. Forest have only got 1 game. Oh, Forest are away to Spurs on Monday night. Again, that's not going to be easy because your heads are going to be definitely up now.
Yeah, you would hope so.
I never saw the penalty last night, and apparently the goalie took Maddison out.
Yeah, I think anywhere outside of a football field, and this is probably, he's up for GBH this morning, that goalkeeper. It was unbelievable. I think if you were watching football in the 60s, it would have said, oh, that's just a coming together. But it was such a coming together. I think the goalkeeper came out and he didn't necessarily go for the ball. He just tried to make himself big in order to, to block the shot, block the header, whatever was coming from Maddison. But he came out at such speed, and Maddison really had no idea he was there. He's running with his back towards the goalkeeper, tries to get a little flick on, and just got clattered straight into his head and his face. But his knees also buckled, and he sort of crumpled under the contact. And he tried to play on for a few minutes afterwards, but he didn't look right. I'm not quite sure what the actual injury was, but he looked like he'd been in a car crash. So it was a strange one because the referee didn't give the penalty immediately. Went to VAR, took an age. Eventually, they called him over and had a look at the pitch side monitor. But it was, and let's be honest, give the referee and the VAR a bit of credit here. It's you're giving a decision a little bit like in the Madrid game. You're giving a decision against the home team, the home fans.
Yeah,
everybody's kind of saying, all the Frankfurt fans would no doubt be saying it's just a collision. It's not intentional. But anywhere else on the pitch, and you're basically saying it's a dangerous challenge, whether or not you won the ball, whether or not
red card.
You're putting that person into some risk.
Yeah, it was interesting in the Real Madrid game in that the referee was brave enough to give a penalty against them straight away.
Yeah.
But after looking at the monitor, and then having given them a penalty, went to the monitor and actually said, no, it's not a penalty. I mean, that. And the commentators at halftime were saying he's not refereed this very well. And I thought, well, hang on a minute. I was expecting a Homer referee who was just going to give them everything, I don't understand VAR though. I don't understand VAR because
it's very different.
Rudiger stamped on Miles Lewis Skelly, deliberate stamping on his stomach. and they didn't even look at it. There wasn't even a free kick. And you think,
Yeah.
if VAR can pick up on all these penalty things, why can't they say to the ref, actually, you need to look at this. We think this is dangerous play.
Yeah, there seems to be. I suppose this is, we're going over old territory here, but there's such an inconsistency, right? Is it there for obvious errors that the referee has just missed on the field, and it's there to just be a guide or a help for them? Is it there for these minuscule, like centimeter offside decisions where it's so close that they can't possibly be 100% certain, even with VAR? So it's like I think we just want a bit of clarity as fans about under what circumstances should we expect VAR to kick in? And then if
Yeah.
VAR does kick in, it should be a relatively quick decision. These 3, 4, 5 minute delays in games are just terrible for fans,
Well, I
terrible
think,
for
I
the
mean,
players as
yeah,
well.
in the Real Madrid game, the 2 penalties, because that ended up with 7 minutes of extra time at half time.
Yeah.
The moment he gives a penalty and it's going to VAR, why don't they go to the screens, look at it? They can be told, VAR could say, yeah, we think this is still a penalty, but they'd have had time to look at it on the screen and go yes or no. But they
Yeah.
have to wait for VAR, which takes forever. Then they run over to the screen and take however long they need to take, which again, I was very impressed by the one where he cancelled out the Rice penalty, because he looked at it from every single angle and went, no, this is not a penalty. And at the time he said it was a penalty. So
It's quite a tricky one. That one I felt was really tricky because, again, like, what do we want VAR for? That was such a subjective call because
Yeah,
Rice did have a hold of him, just like every
he did.
defender does
Yeah,
whenever they're
yeah,
trying to defend, a free kick or a cross into the box. He did have a hold of him. The question is, does he have enough of him to
yeah.
create
To
that
make him
fumble
go
to
down
make
like
him go down? Exactly.
he went down. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and it's a really tricky one. Like, ultimately, let's face it, players are trying to con referees, they're trying to con VAR, they're trying to con everybody, and they're going to try and win free kicks and win penalties in situations like that. But ultimately, that's a subjective call. I don't know. I'm not saying this as a Spurs fan. I was 50-50 as to whether he gave it or didn't go with it. I thought the fact that I was quite surprised he overturned it, as you say, a very brave decision for a referee in Madrid. But I wouldn't have been shocked as well if he'd gone with it, just because it's almost so difficult to decide. Like, he'd already given an on-field decision a penalty.
yeah.
There wasn't conclusive evidence that he was wrong.
No,
And he could have just gone with that. I thought he might have just stuck with his original, but he changed his mind, and I guess none of
yeah,
it matters in the end. You won, what, 5-1 on aggregate, and on march on to
yeah. And I
Paris.
mean, they never would have scored if we hadn't have. They never looked like scoring
Oh,
because
you
all they
gifted
kept
that
doing,
goal as well. Yeah,
they kept putting crosses in, which is
yeah.
meat and drink to us. It's like, oh, another cross. We'll just head that one out then.
And it turns out all they needed to do was give the ball to who was it, Saliba, and just wait for him to
So
not
all they had to
notice
do was give it to Saliba, and he give it back
at
to
his
them.
feet. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that
He
was
had
a huge
absolutely no
mistake.
idea that
Yeah,
Vinny Junior was there, did he? And he snooped in and scored a
he
pretty good goal.
was
But
he was so
yeah,
fast.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so yes, so this weekend we got double game week. It's a
Yep.
big week. Oh, a couple of things I spotted. So here's a quiz test for you.
Go
There's
on.
a guy who plays American football called Desmond Watson. He's 6'6". How many pounds do you think he is? You can do stone or pounds. I don't mind.
No, not
I'll
pounds.
give you a
And
clue. He
yeah,
is the
it's
heaviest player in the NFL.
heaviest players, some big units in the NFL. I would think they've still got to be able to move around. And even 6'6", I'm going to go 360 pounds.
Okay. Well, let me add one other thing. He can do a 5.93 40-second dash.
Okay, that's his move. He's
Okay.
shifted for 360 pounds.
He weighs as much as an upright piano. Would you like to add any more pounds to what you've just put on there?
Um, I have no idea which way to go with this now. I have no frame of reference for the weight of an upright piano. I'm going to go.
How many pounds did you say? Three
I
something.
said 360, so I think I'm sounding like it should be a lot more than what you're talking about this.
You're 104 pounds out. He's 464 pounds, or 33 stone 2 pounds. We'll just call him 33 stone.
I don't
33
think
stone, and he moves 40 yard dash in 5.93 seconds.
If that hits you, I mean, oh my goodness. Madison got off lightly getting collided with that goalkeeper, doesn't it, compared to that?
Could you imagine getting hit by him? Then the other thing I saw this week, which just actually made me laugh. So Louis, what's his name? Suarez, the biter,
Yeah.
is now playing in the in America, the MSL. And apparently, when he was at Barcelona, there was a contract there was a clause in his contract that said if he bit somebody, it was a $3 million fine. Right. Apparently, this doesn't exist now in his MLS, so he's free to do what he does best. Last week's victim was Louis' old Barcelona teammate Jordi Alba, who recalled in horror as the Uruguayan sank his teeth into his knuckles.
So that's been like pent up for years of all that time at Barcelona.
This man, he's like, him and Tyson in the ring together would be hilarious. There'd be no punches thrown, just bites.
It was such a. I remember when was it? It was the World Cup when he first did it, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was such a strange move.
Yes.
And it's so weird, isn't it, when you see that?
Like it was like Dracula. He just went in on him, didn't he? And it was like,
yeah. I kind of. It's all like you say. You actually mentioned Tyson there, but like I remember watching the Tyson fight against Holyfield when he did that, and it was such a weird thing to see. That you're so kind of he caught off guard by it. But obviously, all those years at Barcelona, he was so frustrated at his inability, or he couldn't afford
the £3 million. He couldn't the $3 million fine. So he was like,
I mean, that's probably 6 weeks' wages gone right there, isn't it? So like he's not gonna throw that away. So he's gone to the MLS, and he's suddenly like he's really, pardon the pun, sunk his teeth into football over there. So. Good luck to him. I'm glad he's enjoying himself and getting back to what he's good at.
Exactly. So we should draw this nonsense to an end.
Fair enough.
Thank you for today. That was
fun.